Dundee, on Scotland's eastern coast along the Firth of Tay, is a dynamic city known for its history and innovation. Once an industrial hub for jute, jam and journalism, Dundee has transformed into a centre for digital and creative industries. Its revitalised waterfront features the V&A Dundee, an iconic design museum, alongside the RRS Discovery, known to be the famous ship which took Robert Falcon Scott and Ernest Shackleton to their first expedition to the Antarctic in 1901. In February 2021, the city was rocked by the discovery of two bodies in a residence on Troon Avenue, a mother and her daughter. 25-year-old Bennylyn Aquino Burke grew up in the Philippines and had a happy life there, with her father Benedicto and sister Sheila working to keep a roof over their heads while Bennylyn completed her education. She was described by her sister as kind and down-to-earth, a woman with many friends who was a devoted and loving mother to 2-year-old daughter Jellica, who was described as a sweet and cuddly little girl. Struggling with being a single parent, Bennylyn started to seek online friendships, and in doing so, started talking to a software engineer named Andrew Innes, who was from Dundee in Scotland. The pair often conversed, and eventually Innes flew out to the Philippines to meet Bennylyn, despite the fact she was still married at this time. She had met a man named Lexington Burke, who was from the UK and almost 40 years her senior, in 2015 via an online dating site, and 3 years later married. The couple then had a daughter together, Jellica, who was born in August of 2018. In 2019, on what happened to be their daughter's first birthday, Bennylyn and Lexington moved to the UK in the hopes of giving Jellica a better life there, but within a few months, the couple's marriage broke down. As a result, Bennylyn and her daughter moved into sheltered accommodation in Kingswood, Bristol. Despite the move being quite daunting, Bennylyn made good friends while living at the sheltered housing, and she befriended members of a local group, which helped provide baby items for struggling mothers. She had employment at a care home and in online selling, but neither paid well. Even though money was tight, being the selfless person she was, Bennylyn always sent some money home to her family in the Philippines. It was during this time in Bristol that Bennylyn developed a friendship with 50-year-old Andrew Innes, who had some disturbing internet habits. He had joined approximately 34 different dating websites and even had long spreadsheets about hundreds of women on these sites, where he rated them in accordance to factors including age, weight, height, and even if they had children. Disturbingly, his highest-rated women were in their mid to late 20s with young children, just like Bennylyn Burke. Innes was calculating and devious, and as their conversations became more intimate, he requested sexual images from Bennylyn, but she refused. She wasn't initially looking for a relationship, just friendship, but she felt bad for Innes, who wasn't allowed inside the sheltered accommodation during his trips to visit her, and he had to sleep in his car. During these conversations, Innes told Burke that he could employ her as a community relations manager, which included pay of £1,000 per month and accommodation, but the snag was that the job was located in Dundee. Naturally, as a young mother looking to provide for her child, Bennylyn didn't want the opportunity to slip away. However, she didn't want to move from Bristol and told Andrew she could do the job remotely. After spending a lot of time chatting online and video calling, Innes managed to convince Burke to visit him up in Scotland. In the days leading up to their first meeting, Innes made some disturbing searches on his computer, including what is chloroform used for and underfloor storage. On February 18th, 2021, Bennylyn, who was travelling with Jellica in Andrew's vehicle, conversed with her sister over a video call while they were travelling from Bristol to Dundee for the weekend, a lengthy journey of approximately 452 miles. She had never visited Scotland before and had only just met Andrew Innes, so she did have some reservations. However, she decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. But this choice, unbeknownst to Bennylyn at the time, would be a fatal one. Bennylyn told her sister that she planned to return home on Monday morning, having not packed much to visit the city of Discovery. But sadly, by the commencement of the new week, she and her beloved daughter would be dead. During their visit to Dundee, various snaps of Bennylyn and Jellica were taken at numerous viewpoints across the city, including Camperdown Park and at the RRS Discovery, during which Bennylyn continued to be in regular contact with her sister. On February 19th, Sheila said farewell to her sister for the final time. By the following day, she grew concerned that her sister hadn't replied to her messages or phone calls and decided to contact Innes to make sure Bennylyn and Jellica were safe and well. Sheila messaged Innes, "Hi, hello sir, what happened to my sister?" To which he replied on February 21st, "It's a little bit of a long story, but don't worry, she's perfectly fine." Sheila had a feeling that something was very wrong and continued to press Andrew Innes in regards to her sister. For Bennylyn to not contact her was highly irregular. Sheila continued to ask where Bennylyn was, to which he told her that they had met on a dating website and that he had visited her. Sheila asked for proof of life with a video, but Innes sent an old video, which immediately raised concerns. Innes then proceeded to tell Sheila that her sister was in Glasgow with another man who was a teacher, and that she, quote, wasn't 100% honest with him about her divorce. He then expressed to her that he was, quote, no longer interested in her, but his story changed. He then told Sheila that Bennylyn was in hiding from her husband, who was seeking custody of Jellica and looking to deport her back to the Philippines. She was looking to hide at Innes's address, but he told her sister that he didn't want police to find him harbouring her. He even said he was going to wipe his electronic devices to, quote, protect her and himself. His story became more unbelievable as time passed. Innes continued to evade Sheila's requests to speak to her sister, making excuse after excuse as to why Bennylyn couldn't speak to her. She's asleep, she's with friends, she's gotten rid of her phone, etc. But Sheila knew that something wasn't right. Subsequently, Innes cut off all contact, which added even more fuel to the fire of suspicion. In the days following Bennylyn's last known contact, her brother had a premonition in a dream where he was looking at a blurred family photograph, and a deep feeling in his gut told him that something was awry. In fact, he had a foreboding feeling that it was already too late. 2 weeks later, on March 1st, 25-year-old Bennylyn and 2-year-old Jellica were officially reported as missing persons to Avon and Somerset Police after failing to attend an appointment. Police Scotland were also informed and made contact with Burke's family back in the Philippines. Meanwhile, on March 5th, Police Scotland carried out a welfare check at an address on Troon Avenue in Dundee after discovering the owner of the vehicle had made a return trip to the address from Bristol. It was the home of Andrew Innes, who initially refused the police access to his residence, claiming he was self-isolating as it was locked down during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that his daughter had just come out of the bath. Eventually, he reluctantly allowed them entry, where they were met with his kitchen in disarray. The young girl found in the home was taken to safety. He then told authorities that Bennylyn and Jellica were dropped off in Cumbernauld with another male. However, the police did not believe him. It was at this juncture that Andrew Innes confessed that he had, in fact, murdered Bennylyn and her daughter, and had buried their remains beneath thick layers of concrete under the floorboards in his kitchen. "I killed her. She's under the floor. We got into a fight and I killed her." He was subsequently arrested and charged on March the 6th in connection to the deaths of both mother and daughter. His home was then searched by authorities and forensic investigators, and after a thorough search of the property, uncovered their bodies beneath the floor under the kitchen sink. Bennylyn was wrapped in a black trash bag. She had suffered stab wounds and had been beaten to death with a hammer, and her daughter, Jellica, who lay alongside her, had been strangled and sexually abused. Andrew Innes was described by investigating officers as, quote, cold and callous and without remorse. Interestingly, during the course of the investigation, CCTV footage surfaced showing Innes at a local B&Q store in February, where he purchased tools and a number of other items, including gravel. A skip, or dumpster, was left outside Innes's residence the following day, which was then filled with scrap from his kitchen, which was being refurbished, specifically the floor, where the bodies were later buried. Due to the nature of the crime, investigators conducted a meticulous search of the residence as a precaution, as these actions warranted further investigation. Police believed it was entirely possible that Innes perhaps had other bodies buried beneath the floorboards of his property. However, this turned out not to be the case. This was why the recovery of Bennylyn and Jellica's remains took a month. Friends gathered at Brandon Hill Park in Bristol to remember Bennylyn and Jellica 2 weeks after their remains were recovered. The spot was often where they had picnics together. Candles were lit in memory of them, along with photographs, teddy bears, and balloons tied to nearby trees, which read, quote, "You are loved, you are missed, you are remembered." The 5-day trial of Andrew Innes began on January 31st, 2023 at the High Court in Edinburgh. Bennylyn's family flew to Scotland from the Philippines, and Jellica's father travelled up from England. Innes's testimony included blaming steroid medication for Crohn's disease for his behaviour and nonsensical ramblings, before detailing what happened before, during and following the murders, details which were hard for Bennylyn and Jellica's loved ones to hear. Innes claimed Bennylyn lunged at him with a knife and that he killed her in self-defence, but the jury saw through these lies. At one point, Innes even claimed to have visions and hallucinations, and claimed he was triggered into a, quote, hybrid vision after seeing Bennylyn in the kitchen, in a way which somehow resembled his ex-partner. Testimony from the girl found in his house, who had suffered from sexual abuse by Innes, recounted how Jellica had been killed by him during a game of hide-and-seek, and she witnessed him kill Bennylyn with a hammer. This testimony crucially corroborating with forensic and physical evidence. Following the conclusion of the trial, after just 2.5 hours of deliberations, the jury found Andrew Innes guilty of 2 counts of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 36 years before being considered for parole. Justice had finally been served for Bennylyn and Jellica, whose lives were tragically cut short by what can only be described as evil.